All right.
Kevin and I are going to do a quick share out of social media, and then we'll get started once the live is up and running.
Yeah, there might be a couple of people watching. I've sent them over to the channel. Told them what's going on and where. Now.
All right, we are live.
Hello, everybody. We will be getting underway in just one moment.
So how's the weather in Scotland right now?
How's the weather in Scotland? It's actually not too bad today. Just went out for a walk for an hour and was all wrapped up, and then got to the end of it and it was quite hot. So I think it's kind of mildish.
What about you, Dan?
It's bloody horrible here, guys. I'm not going to. It's really, really grim. I went out earlier on, and within seconds, I wish that I hadn't. But unfortunately, I had to get some shopping in. Various things, and not nice shopping either. Everybody, not geeky shopping. No box sets or anything like that. It's boring stuff.
Geeky shopping's always good.
I know. All I've been doing feels like all I've been doing lately is kitten shopping.
Oh God, yeah. I've been seeing your pictures float up. Various cats.
What's up, Nathaniel? Nathaniel's in the chat. Good to see you waking up. Well, I guess I'm the early bird right now. 8 a.m. on the Pacific Coast.
You're the insane one right now. So
see. Is that Lurkers ERS?
Yes, that's Nathaniel. Yeah. Good friend of the network.
But I got the social share out. So guys, I think it's appropriate. Let's begin the Fandom Show. Episode 2 of the Fandom Show here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Of course, our exclusive YouTube channel show. Once a month, we gather together, members of the Fandom Podcast Networks and our good friends, and we talk about everything that's going on in fandom, kind of a general roundtable discussion of what is going on. But we can't have a roundtable discussion if we don't have people. Of course, I'm your host today for today's events, Mr. Kyle Wagner, sitting here in the host chair, but can't do it alone. And you know what? It's a little weird because first up, we have the man who stands with me with no good accent, my co-founder, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Good to be back on the Fandom Show. I don't know. Do I have an accent? I notice sometimes I'll slip to like a southerny type thing happening whenever I go back to Georgia, which I will be doing soon for Thanksgiving. But I don't know, Dan, do I have an accent?
Not one that I can put my finger on, other than American. I haven't got the most.
But what part of America? Because we have different ones. That's why I was curious.
For a geezer who does a lot of time traveling, I'm not too good with space, and I seriously geography diabolical with it. I cannot tell you where most places are. If you to give me a map of America, which state was where? No, not a chance. Jonathan.
Okay, you need to come over here more. Yeah, both you and our guest.
Yeah. So, without further ado, if you don't recognize his face, that is the host, of course, of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and part of Team Europe, as it appears to be Team America versus Team Europe today. Kevin.
No. Team UK.
Team UK. Okay. Team UK. Team UK versus Team America. I don't like our odds, Kevin.
No.
But they're in lockdown. They're in lockdown, so we might have a chance. But that is Mr. Dan Hadley, the host of Type 40 here on the Fandom Podcast Network. How are you doing, Mr. Hadley?
I'm good, and I'm just hoping the rest of the questions are going to be a bit easier than that one. Start with accents, work our way back.
We didn't say anything about a high school pop quiz in this.
It's good to see you. Good to see all of you, come to think of it, particularly on this horrible afternoon. It's good to see some smiling faces.
Well, we have a few of those around. But Mr. Reitzel, because you have such a special relationship with our guest this week, sitting in the guest chair, would you care to introduce him?
Yes, of course. Hailing all the way over to Edinburgh, Scotland. Our favorite Scot on the network now is author Jonathan Melville. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm good, thank you. Great to be here. Although I realise I just don't have the microphone set up, which is really, I feel left out, really.
You continue to keep making appearances on the Fandom Podcast Network. We might have to rectify that. But Jonathan, I'm proud to say Jonathan and I go back a ways. When I was in Scotland touring Highlander locations with my lovely fiance, Erin Gill, back in 2018, Jonathan here was working on an ambitious project, and I got a chance to meet you in person in Edinburgh. And we had a meal, and I interviewed you, and I've had you on the show a few times since. We talked on Blood of Kings, of course, our Highlander podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We had you on a couple times talking about this book that you're working on. We also had you on talking about Highlander, the original movie, and all the different forms of physical media that was released on it. That was a fun show. But I want to talk about your newest book right now. And we've had you on recently on Blood of Kings. You finished an ambitious project that we were happy to see you start from the beginning. And this is A Kind of Magic, the making of Highlander, the original Highlander from 1986. Your book has just come out.
It has, yes. It took me, roughly 4 years from start to finish. And it's just been a fun thing to do, really. It started off with an interview here in Edinburgh with Clancy Brown, the Kurgan, and ended with book coming out, I suppose. But yeah, it's been a fantastic few years, and it's been great. Thank you for being so supportive of the project, because I started listening to Blood of Kings roughly, I guess, when I started the book, because I just wanted to. I thought I knew a lot about Highlander, but you guys taught me so much more. So it's been brilliant listening to you, and kind of then becoming a guest many times, which has been brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, you've always been very passionate about the original Highlander movie, and I'm holding up your book right here. And you have done over, 60 interviews of people in front of the camera, behind the camera, and you really did your due diligence. And you also touched on the fandom of Highlander, which I am honored to have been part of with this. And so that's why this holds a special place in my heart. But you yourself wanted to write about something that you wanted to know more about, because how the first film affected you and how it's retained in your fandom and in your heart for so long. And the book is being published by Polaris Publishing there in Scotland. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Here in Edinburgh. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's available now through there at Polaris Publishing. And now, I guess this month in November, it will be available on Amazon to order directly, correct?
Well, it's for America. Yeah. It's now the start of December, and it's because it's been so popular. Actually, the publisher sent out a few hundred copies by ship to America, and the pre-orders on Amazon have been so high that we had to get more printed in America. So
that's a good thing.
Brilliant. It just means sadly it's been pushed back a bit. So I'm sorry if you're waiting for it. But
wait, does that mean Blood of Kings is going to get its advertising cut, guys?
Yeah, we'll get a couple extra thank yous maybe. So, but there is another reason why we have you on today, Jonathan, in addition to talking about all the other fandom news and topics on this show, the Fandom Show. But 1990 was 30 years ago. And this year we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of probably one of the most famous cult films of its time and today, and that is the movie Tremors. And in December, I think it's 14th or 15th, they're going to be releasing the 30th anniversary on home video, 4K Blu-ray. And not only do you have some participation with that, but also I want you to tell us about the book you wrote about Tremors in 2015, which is also available on Amazon.
The book, it just so happens to be sitting here, actually. Yeah, this book, Tremors, Seeking Perfection, the unofficial guide to Tremors, which, I wrote back in 2015. And like Highlander, like A Kind of Magic, I've been a fan of Tremors forever. Well, since 1992, anyway, when I first saw it. and I wanted to read a book on it and all the sequels, and nobody had written it. So when you get to that situation, sometimes you just have to do it yourself. So I did. So the book came out for the 25th anniversary. And then, I think it was last year in 2019, I got an email from Universal here in the UK, who were interested in doing a new documentary about the first film. And so I went down to London last year and was in this documentary, which is also got Kevin Bacon and Michael Gross and almost loads of people that were in it. And then there's me, for some reason, pops up a couple of times. And then, recently, maybe towards the start of this year, 2020, I got a call or email from Arrow Video, which I'm sure most people watching this have heard of if you're geeky enough. In fact, I've got the T-shirt on here.
Nice.
Arrow Video are just one of the best kind of cult DVD, Blu-ray labels in the world, I think, and they're based in the UK. So they said, "Do you want to be part of this set?" So once again, I'm part of it. Yeah. So the documentary is going to be on there, plus a commentary, which I'd never done a commentary before. I love commentaries. So I felt quite a lot of pressure to try and get that right. I hope I have. I don't know. Fingers crossed. And they've written for the booklet as well. So I'm all over the rash, this box set.
Kyle?
I was just going to say, too, and for those of you who are wondering, it might be the unofficial guide to Tremors, but it has the stamp of the man who is the heart of Tremors, as Michael Gross himself wrote the foreword for Jonathan's book, The Unofficial Guide to Tremors. So as far as I'm concerned, that makes it official.
That's as official as it gets, I think. Yeah.
It's the closest you're going to get, I think, ever to a book on Tremors. I mean, or official, I suppose. But
I got to say, I've been very impressed with the cover art for both of your books, especially the Tremors one. The Tremors one is really cool. And I love the Highlander one. Of course, I got a poster of it over here. Yeah. So real quick, who did the art for those?
That's a friend of mine, again, based here in Edinburgh, called Ben Morris. He's fantastic. He illustrates for Doctor Who magazine. He's been doing that for about 10 years or more.
And he did both covers?
He did, yeah. And he'd never even seen Highlander. I think I probably said, "Can you watch Highlander?" obviously to do this one. But that's the first time he'd seen it, and he just came up with that cover. And it's really not changed much since his first attempt.
That's really cool. And of course, are the posters that I have over here, are they still available? Because I ordered mine, I think it was through Etsy or not Etsy, but it was through Polaris Publishing. Is that right?
I think it might be an Etsy, actually. Yeah, Ben's
Etsy?
got a shop on there. So
Gotcha.
it's on my sort of Twitter feed and his one as well. I think it's Ben Morris Illo, I think is his Twitter. But no, he's fantastic. And and it's great.
Dan, are you familiar with his stuff that he's done for Doctor Who?
Yeah. As Jonathan's just said, I mean, these illustrations and little bits here and there. I've seen them in not just Doctor Who magazine, which I've been buying since the year dot, but other comics as well, like kids comics, because this is my field. I'm a sequential storyteller, and I work in graphic design and illustration, so I know his work very, very well.
Very cool.
I am right, aren't I, Jonathan? He's done like the Beano and things like that.
I don't know if he's done the Beano. Wouldn't like to say. I don't know. But no, he does other books and magazines, and it's just Doctor Who, I guess. He used to do Russell T Davies' production notes back in 2005.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. The regular column,
Okay.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, I know the name.
Well, I just to touch one last thing on Tremors, Jonathan, we just had you on to record our Couch Potato Theater special of Tremors, and that will be releasing just right around the time that the video that it comes out, the 30th anniversary video comes out. So stay tuned for that here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and that audio podcast will also be, of course, on our YouTube channel. Kyle?
Absolutely. And speaking of our YouTube channel, of course, if you're watching us now, you know about the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, we love to have subscribers. We love for you guys to click the like button. We hope you like what we're doing. But there are other ways to find the Fandom Podcast Network as well. And it starts as our podcast master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Of course, you can also download the Podbean app on your mobile devices, search for the Fandom Podcast Network, and find all of our shows. But you can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on all major podcast catchers, whether you're talking iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, so many others out there. Too, if you want to follow us on social media, you can find our Facebook page where we try to keep you updated on the latest things going on around the network and in fandom in general. If you'd like to drop us a direct communication, you can always email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Fandom Podcast Network, or on Twitter at FanPod Network. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix, of course, on Facebook as well, and through the Fandom Podcast Network.
And Mr. Hadley, as you travel through time and space in your own Type 40, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I always tell people I'm scattered throughout all of space and time, but mostly on Instagram and Twitter as the Spacebook, where I talk about all things geeky inside and outside of the TARDIS.
And Mr. Melville, where can people find you on social media?
On Twitter, I'm John Melville, so JON_Melville. And on Facebook, I think it's /Jonathan Melville.
And of course, too, you can find both of Jonathan's books here in the States on Amazon.com. I believe they're also on Amazon UK as well. So check them out. They're wonderful reads, especially if you're a fan of Highlander or Tremors. They're must-haves. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on around the Fandom Podcast Network. Of course, we've got Culture Clash, our regular show every 2 weeks here. It goes live here on our YouTube channel. We put it out as a podcast as well. We keep you updated with what's going on in fandom. And of course, too, we have a few fun segments, tell you what's out there to watch, review, things like that. Of course, I host that with my co-host, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Yes, definitely. That's a fun show. We let you know what's happening currently in fandom. And it's, but although things are a little slower right now because of COVID and the holidays and stuff keeps getting pushed back. But I did want to throw a question out there. Nathaniel in the chat asked something, and I wanted to ask both you, Dan, and Jonathan this, because I've noticed this from my UK friends and European friends that either have come over here and gone back and visited, or US friends that have moved or spent a lot of time over in the UK and Europe. Nathaniel asked, is it true that Thanksgiving is starting as a tradition in the UK? And I've seen this happen before. Like I have a French friend of mine who has been over here many times, is from Paris, but did do a Thanksgiving type of meal in Paris when it was Thanksgiving. Dan?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for anybody else. I haven't heard a whisper of this, not at all. And I've never been, despite the fact that I've seen so many movies, so many American movies, I've still never really been that sure what Thanksgiving's for. So if anybody wants to, in the live chat, if somebody please educate this ignorant British guy. But we do have something similar. I mean, Jonathan may be able to back this up. At this time of year, when we were at school, it's something more for children. We used to have something called the Harvest Festival. But there was never where you'd give thanks for crops and all this kind of thing throughout the farming year. But it would be more a sort of a ritualistic thing, and it would be attached to the church in some way. Does that ring? Yeah. Yes. Over to you, Jonathan.
No. I mean, we don't. The Harvest Festival doesn't. I don't even think we have that in Scotland, and unless I missed it all these years. But just when you talk about crops and giving thanks.
Yeah, well, it's tied to that kind of paganism, isn't it? From the classic film, The Wicker Man. That's the same edition I've got. And but it is tied to all of that. But it's all gone a little bit out of fashion since I was a boy in the 80s. My kids, they didn't really do it when they were at school. So maybe some schools have hung on to that, some haven't. As for Thanksgiving, you guys pretty much sent us Halloween, didn't you? Like 45 years.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yes, I'm still a little unsure about that. But yes, things do have a habit of catching on. So it wouldn't at all surprise me. I wouldn't be against it. Certainly not.
No, I'm just going to say, if you guys need to be educated on Thanksgiving, there is a classic American show, WKRP in Cincinnati. And there is one episode called Turkeys Away. It will tell you everything you need to know about Thanksgiving in America.
Obviously it was about early colonists coming over to the U.S. and meeting supposedly peacefully at the time with American natives and sharing a meal together and giving thanks. A lot of history between that is past, of course. Now it's become a way to get family together here and celebrate. It's kind of like your yearly family reunion. And there's certain feasts that you have, but I think more it's getting overshadowed lately because of the next day big sales at your local retailers, the the
Yeah.
Black Friday
I was
stuff.
gonna
Now
say,
it
is
gets
that where
kind
Black Friday comes from? Because all the families
Yes.
together. Oh, I see.
Exactly,
I
yes.
gotcha.
As long as I
But-
get my turkey and sweet potatoes.
But I bring that up because later in the show, we're going to ask everyone, what are your fandom holiday traditions that you do during the holiday season?
So, well, since we got everybody here, we're talking about what's going on around the network, as I'm learning to speak once again. Mr. Hadley, isn't it about time you take the Type 40 out of the regeneration oven? Aren't we getting close here?
Yeah, it's Type 40 is back this week. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network. Back this week for season 3 at long last. Myself, starry-eyed girl Sarah Graham, and the original Lunatic Simon Horton. TV industry insider Simon Horton. We got together for a catch-up. And yes, to take the Type 40 out for a bit of a spin. It's had a big refresh. I think you're going to like that a lot. But it's the same old conversation, same old jokes. Of course, I never.
I've got a Zach
Two and a
Morris
half
timeout.
years.
I got a question I got to ask Dan about Doctor Who
Oh.
stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Not a Doctor Who expert. I dive into the Doctor Who pool from time to
Get
time.
there, get there.
I saw 3 things together that I never expected to see together. Doctor Who,
Yes.
Eric Roberts, and Chase Masterson.
Oh, Jonathan, they need an education. Well, yeah, Eric Roberts has been involved in Doctor Who for 25 years. Believe
I had no idea.
Okay, wait.
Me, he's the best of the best guy.
Kevin, I can even educate you on this. There was a Doctor Who movie back in the day that aired on the Fox network, and in it, Eric Roberts played the Master.
Right.
I did not know that. All right.
I remember, here's some boring trivia. Dan might be the same here. I remember when that came out on VHS, and it came out in the UK. I think it was a week on video, a week before it went on the television.
Yeah.
And I remember queuing up outside one of our stores, HMV, at midnight to buy my copy of the video so I could go home and watch it. That's just a passing comment, really. That was all.
That was one of the earliest times that was ever done over here. I think, wasn't it, Jonathan? That sort of midnight opening kind
Yeah,
of.
it's so exciting at the time.
Certainly certain branches.
Quick shout out to the chat. JT has jumped in. Don't know you yet.
That's a friend of
Thanksgiving
mine.
in the UK, he says, nope. We're too busy with Guy Fawkes and Christmas.
Yeah, that's one of the Type 40 regulars there, JT. He's
Gotcha. Cool.
real live wire.
Yeah.
Hello, mate.
So we got regeneration happening at Type 40. Kevin, Blood of Kings. I know you guys have been paying homage to a great man, but you also got some fun stuff for Christmas time as well.
Yes, we do. Well, first of all, if we go back several episodes, we did, of course, interview Jonathan Melville. We did a great special about his book. Make sure you check that out. But we'll touch on this a little bit later in the show. We recently lost Sean Connery, and Sean Connery is obviously a movie icon, legendary man. He passed away, and as Highlander fans, he's near and dear to our hearts because he plays, of course, Ramirez in Highlander 1 and 2. And we did a 2-part special, and the first one is out now on Blood of Kings. We did my co-host Lee Fillingsness interviewed John Mosby, who is the author of Fearful Cemetery, The Essential Guide to All Things Highlander. And the next episode, we had Jonathan on, of course, and we had him talking, of course, with Highlander Hearts.
Grant Kempster.
Grant, thank you. Sorry, Grant, had a brain freeze there. Grant Kempster goes way back with the Highlander fandom. He started Highlander Heart. He also took the ball and ran with the Highlander fan club. And so he Highlander Heart is the biggest Highlander Facebook group page. If you're a Highlander fan, make sure you go on over there. And Grant's been doing a great job keeping the Highlander fandom. But I had to have Grant and Jonathan on, also giving their take on the loss of Sean Connery. And that episode will be coming out, I think, next week or so. And then the following month in December, we're going to be talking about Highlander merchandise. Highlander, the television series, did a great job of catering to their fans with some great catalogs in the 90s. And Lee and I go over those. And then the next episode after that, also in December, we're going to talk about some new Highlander merchandise that is coming out because as Highlander fans, we've been starving for new merchandise, and it's out there.
Yeah, in other words, it's what Kevin wants under his Christmas tree episodes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Of course, too, with Couch Potato Theater, Kevin, we got a lot going on there. We just put out a great podcast with our good friend Christy Morris.
Yes, Christy chose the 2012 film Dread, and we were surprised that that was one of her picks, and so we had to go with this.
Good choice.
Yeah, one of our favorite interpretations of probably the best interpretation of Judge Dredd, many will say. So that is out now, and of course we have a couple other ones coming out, including of course the Tremors one with Jonathan here coming out soon as well. So make sure you check that. Also, we have Varsity Blues coming out as well, Kyle, celebrating some football.
Varsity Blues, and also you and I on Devil's Night recorded a Crow live CPT, which we have converted to audio form, which will be coming out within the next week as well.
Yeah, and we just recently did a month in October of all vampire movies. Make sure you go check that out. The last one being starring my movie wife, Kate Beckinsale. We did the 2003 film Underworld.
That always gets me. I laugh every time. Sorry, that's the third time you've got me with that.
But there's a lot of other stuff going on around the network. Of course, Adam O'Brien is a busy guy around here. He's cranking out lethal mullets like it's going out of style, covering all those 80s action films. But he was also a huge Sean Connery fan, Kevin. I know he's getting ready to do a little tribute to Sean Connery.
Who wasn't?
Yes, Sean Connery's death hit him especially hard because Connery was his favorite actor, and he is going to be doing a tribute, and I'm going to join him. Actually, we're going to be talking about the 81 film Outland, one of my favorite underrated Sean Connery films. And I know he's going to be doing some others as well. And then we're also going to be talking about Tom Selleck doing some action films. Of course, he did the 80s film. What is it? I'm sorry. Runaway with Gene Simmons from Kiss as the villain, and also a little Quigley Down Under as well. So that's coming later on.
Yep. I think for his Connery tribute, I'll be working with him on About a Man Who Would Be King.
Good choice. And he just released Sidekicks, the Chuck Norris film that he did.
Yeah,
that Chuck Norris did.
Yeah. Also, too, What a Piece of Junk. Mandalorian is everywhere, and What a Piece of Junk. Our Star Wars podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network is all over it. Nathan Miracle, Scott Botman, Derek Marsh. They got guests. They got people talking about Mandalorian. They got it at every angle, Kevin.
Yeah, they got Dominic Pace, who played Gecko the Bounty Hunter from season 1 of Mandalorian, on as a guest. And they're also going to have another guest, a surprise guest coming up very soon that has also been part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, so lots of things going on there. Of course, too, Star Trek. Union Discovery is back, which means Union Federation is back. Great with me, Kevin, our Sestra, Haley Stoddard, and the returning Amy Nelson back to the crew. It's a full complement. We're covering everything Discovery Season 3, and we just broke in our latest episode. The Orville is back in production on Season 3, so hopefully soon we will have Season 3 of the Orville finally.
Yeah, probably going to have to wait till later next year, but at least it's back in production for Season 3, which will be streaming on Hulu exclusively.
Yep. And also, too, if you want some Star Trek, too, Adam O'Brien, Mark Newbold, Making Treks, covering everything classics Trek, but they also talk a little bit of modern Trek, too, but they do a good job bringing it from a different angle. We also have the Good Evening podcast, Brandon, Tom, Chris, they're covering everything Alfred Hitchcock, and they are working on some YouTube stuff, I think, for us here soon, Kevin.
Yeah, they are. Real quick, Hair Metal podcast. I just did a tribute recently to Eddie Van Halen. We had a great group on there talking about that. And also on Time Warp, we're going to be celebrating part 4 of 1995, the movies, which have all celebrated their 25th anniversary this year.
Yep. But with that, that's what's going on around the network. But let's get things started with the roundtable. So let's move to the fandom news table. Now, we're kicking things off. Kevin, you wanted to do something a little different because we're all in lockdown of some sort. Things are delayed. We're trying to scrap around. So you had a question you wanted to ask the roundtable.
Yeah, I want to start with you, Jonathan. You're our guest here. I wanted to know what new shows, movies, maybe documentaries that you're currently watching or streaming. And is there any on your radar you're planning on watching because maybe there's a certain buzz about it?
Wow, I'm still trying to take in all those other shows that you're doing. It's incredible.
We're busy. We got a lot of stuff.
I'm exhausted. That's good. See, I am quite bad when it comes to. You probably want to boot me off just now because when it comes to new shows, I take a little while to catch up with them. Because
are you revisiting anything old or anything like that? You know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. At the moment, I'm trying to get through quite a few things things on streaming. Much as I love my Blu-rays and my DVDs, at the same time, I do think streaming is brilliant for catching up with maybe some stuff that I don't want to spend all the money on, tons of box sets. So I jotted down a few that I'm watching. So Justified, which I'd not watched before, but I'm kind of discovering for the first time. Bosch on Amazon. In fact, those were both on Amazon. In fact, most of these seem to be on Amazon.
Funny you mentioned Bosch, by the way.
Yeah.
He makes a cameo in the recent Mandalorian episode we'll talk about.
I thought that was him.
Latest Welliver.
Yep.
You stole my heart with Justified. That's one of my all-time favorite TV shows.
I love that show too.
He's a god.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I've been hearing many good things about it over the years, and it's finally on Amazon Prime over here. So I thought I'd give it a go. Bosch, I'm very slow. I'm quite slow with things. So Bosch, I've just finished season 2. But I love the fact that David Marciano is in there. He pops up, who I'm a huge fan of Due South from back in the day. And he used to be Vecchio in Due South. So I just love the fact that he's in there for a while. A show that I don't know if you guys have heard of, but Dan will have done, called The Sweeney, which
I've heard of it.
Yeah, which is an old 70s cop show here made in the UK, which I've had the DVDs for years on the shelf, but it's now on Amazon Prime. So it's like, oh, well, I'll just pop it on in the morning before work. So I've been watching that recently as well. And more up to date, watching The Boys. So I've been watching The Boys season 2. I do watch some new things, which I'm really enjoying. I'm only on episode sort of 3 or 4, but that's really good fun. And otherwise, I kind of dip into just different things. Try and watch lots of films as well, but trying to dip into various things on Netflix and over here on BBC iPlayer, which is there's just so much content on there. So last night I was watching a thing on Netflix about Rubik's Cube competitions. Has anyone seen this?
No.
Sounds good, though.
Oh, this sounds fascinating.
Like World Championships of Rubik's Cube playing.
That's still a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only 40 minutes long as well, so it's just a really nice little film. It was only made, I think, last year. It takes place in Melbourne, and I think there's a guy from America goes across to Melbourne and takes part. So that was a nice little show.
Where are you streaming that from?
That's on Netflix.
Netflix, okay.
And also I watched the second episode of the Chef's Show with Jon Favreau.
Oh yeah.
Didn't watch episode 1 because my girlfriend is not a huge fan of Gwyneth Paltrow, and she's in that. But
have you seen the movie Chef?
No, I haven't.
This is interesting. That's what it's based on, and the movie is fantastic. It's basically about a guy, Jon Favreau, who's a chef in a very popular restaurant, and then he gets fired because he doesn't really understand how social media works and affects businesses. And he goes. It's kind of like he's building this relationship with his son, and John Leguizamo joins him on this road trip as they have a food truck. And it's really, really good. And it stars some people from Iron Man, and John Leguizamo also had a cameo in the first episode of season 2 of Mandalorian because of it.
And in your defense, Jonathan, you have been writing a book for the last couple of years, so we'll let you slide on the modern stuff.
It takes me a long time. And the one other thing, just to mention in passing, and I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but over sort of the first lockdown, I was watching this show called Detectorists, which is not a sci-fi show or anything like that, but it's just this brilliant little British comedy, which was made a couple of years ago. Again, I missed it the first time it was on. And
it's quite geeky though, isn't it, John? It's quite culty, quite quirky.
Exactly. There's lots of references to sort of old TV shows and films, but it's about these two guys, Mackenzie Crook and Toby
Jones, is it?
Toby Jones, yes, who play metal detectorists in a little village in England. So anyway, I was watching that, and it's just I just loved it, and I want to watch it all over again. It's on for another year on iPlayer, so I think I will. So sorry, yes, I could go on forever talking about all these different things I'm watching, but it's quite bitty, lots of different things. But
you're very similar to me in this respect, Jonathan. I don't do the whole binge watch thing where people watch 3 or 4 episodes in a night. In fact, I don't watch 3 or 4 in a week. I take my time. I will not be rushed by all you
old-fashioned. I think it's just the old-fashioned. I'm just used to watching, like Doctor Who used to be, well, as it still is actually, once a week. That's the way, and like Mandalorian is, I think, as well, once a week. It's and that's of course going against now the way that the world seems to be going. But
I like the ritual of it. The fact that Friday night's my Mandalorian night. Thank you very much. That's what I'm doing.
Well, Dan, is there anything else that you have been watching, whether you're taking your time on it or not?
Yes, I've just finished 13 episodes, season 1 of Stargirl, the CW. Well, it was a DC Universe show originally. I absolutely love it. I think that this originally went out around May, June. So yes, 6 months later, Dan finishes 14 episodes of Stargirl, and I absolutely loved it. I was saying to somebody last week about Stargirl. Doctor Who is unsurprisingly my favorite show of all time, but my second favorite show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And in 20 years, whenever that was, that's 23 years ago that started. Okay, in 2 decades, I don't think I've ever seen a show come as close to encapsulating the appeal of Buffy for me as this Stargirl show. I won't pretend the writing is as clever, as nuanced, but it's getting there. It's close, and the family dynamic in it is wonderful. Breck Bessinger, I think, plays Stargirl.
Yes.
And she's just terrific. Real ray of sunshine, but plays it on 2 or 3 different levels as well. Luke Wilson plays her stepdad.
Yeah, Luke Wilson is phenomenal on that show.
He's so nailed down on it, and it doesn't feel like. And who's playing the mother? I got this wrong last week.
Amy Smart. Amy Smart is playing
Amy Smart. That's it. I got it wrong again. Yes. So both of them, even though they're movie stars, they never come across as movie stars that are slumming it. They are very much part of the ensemble, and some of the kids on the show are just can't help but warm to them as they take on the mantles of these old superheroes. It's all taken from 2 comic books, really, depending on how old you are and where you jumped in with comics, on Justice Society of America and Infinity Incorporated in the 80s. So they've blended it together nicely with Jeff Johns' own Stargirl book from the late 90s, Star and Stripe it was called then, which is a tribute to his late sister who died only 18. Her name was Courtney, and she died in a plane crash when she was 18. Yeah, so the entire character of Courtney Whitmore is a tribute to his late sister, which is not only a beautiful thing to do, but the fact that she's become one of the probably breakout characters from the 90s that's still around today. It's it's some tribute. It's a great show if you like. We all get a bit, I think, superhero fatigue is sort of setting in a little bit. But this is a show with a good heart, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than the normal fare. Great job by the CW and DC on that. What do you want?
You go. I'll go last.
Obviously, Mandalorian's out there. I'm very excited. Season 5 of The Expanse comes out next month on Amazon. That's one of my favorite shows. But a show I've started kind of watching that it was in its first season when COVID kicked in was a Fox show called Prodigal Son with Tom Paine, whom a lot of people know, he played Jesus on The Walking Dead. But in this show, he's a profiler. But the catch to him is his father is a notorious serial killer that's in prison. His father is played by the legendary Michael Sheen. Oh. And I have started watching this. Lou Diamond Phillips is in this. And Kevin, Halston Sage from The Orville is in this show. She plays the main character's sister.
Definitely watching this now.
Michael Sheen actually has the real right to have said, I am the real husband of Kate Beckinsale at one time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm usually not huge into police procedurals, but this has got something different to it. It's got a little bit of that True Detective kind of feel. And Michael Sheen is just so brilliant in this. His serial killer's name was The Surgeon. And the main lead, Tom Paine, who I was a fan of his character on Walking Dead, is phenomenal in this. And you can get it on Hulu right now and stream the entire season. It's phenomenal. Halston Sage is very interesting in this as well. I can see it's a much beefier part for her than what she was doing on The Orville. Great show. Definitely check that out. Like I said, I just got done watching The Boys, watching The Mandalorian right now. And like I said, very much excited for the return of The Expanse in December.
Very cool. I've been telling people, I'm going to say again here on the Fandom Show, if you're a fan of The Boys, a lot of people love the evil superhero, Homelander. I recommend Banshee because Anthony Starr did this series in 2013 through 16. There is four seasons about a guy who gets out of prison and tries to put pieces back together. And he takes the identity of a dead sheriff in a small town in Pennsylvania called Banshee. And he then starts to deal with the local mob, and his past starts coming back. But if you like The Boys, you will like this one because it has a similar style. It's not for children. If you catch my drift, highly recommend it. I discovered a film on Amazon here, and Kate Beckinsale is going to be a common thread here. A movie called The Only Living Boy in New York. It came out in 2017. When I saw the name of it, I'm like, ooh, is this a post-apocalyptic thing? No, it's a kind of coming of age story of a recent college graduate played by Callum Turner, but it's got a fantastic cast: Jeff Bridges, Kate Beckinsale, Pierce Brosnan, Cynthia Nixon, Tate Donovan, Wallace Shawn. It's about a boy who basically is trying to find himself, and Pierce Brosnan plays his very successful and rich father, and he finds out that he's having an affair, and he ends up having his own struggles and talking to the woman who is the person who he's having an affair with, which is played by Kate Beckinsale. But the standout role in this movie is Jeff Bridges, because he plays this kid's roommate, and he starts to teach him how to live. Hence the name, The Only Kid Living in New York. And I loved it because and maybe you guys can relate to this, of how as we get older, the city that we grew up with or the cities that we visited have changed so much. All these great stuff that was happening so long ago with these great stores and restaurants, they're gone now because of chain stores coming in. And that's a kind of an underlying theme of this. And last but not least, I want to mention and maybe ask you about this, Dan and Jonathan, is I just discovered a series, I think it is also on Amazon, Alex Rider, the new TV series based on the books.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it just came out. There's currently 9 episodes, and it is it's an IMDb original that you can stream for free, at least over here. They just show some commercials, but it's based on those book series. And it's basically about an ordinary teenager who's enlisted to do the work on behalf of MI6, where he uses his skills that he didn't know that he had. And I remember the movie starring Alex Pettyfer that came out in 2006. I don't know if you remember that. It's called Alex Rider, Operation Stormbreaker. Do you remember that, Dan?
Yeah, it was just Stormbreaker here. Hugh McGregor was in it, wasn't he? And I can't remember who else. Pretty big cast to put around a young sort of unknown actor.
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane was in that movie, Stephen Fry, Damian Lewis, Ewan McGregor. But they have a new series out, and I watched the first 2, and I'm hooked. It's really good.
I watched the first episode, but for some reason it didn't quite hook me as much. I'd like to give it another few, but I think partly just that it takes quite a while to get going, and I think I read something about it takes quite a few episodes to get to the place he's going to. And
if you're familiar with the film that came out in 2006, this series takes a little bit more darker and realistic approach to this character and the British Secret Service stuff that they touch on.
But I it wasn't a bad show. It just didn't quite hook me enough. But maybe I'll get back to it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of streaming, that leads us into one of our top stories too. WandaVision, the first Marvel Disney Plus series. We all thought it was going to come out maybe that right after The Mandalorian. We have it maybe for Christmas. Disney has announced that it will actually debut January 15th. It'll be the first Marvel original series on Disney Plus. It actually was not supposed to be. It was supposed to be Falcon and Winter Soldier, but because of COVID and filming delays that affected that, we've had a little bit of a flip-flop. This show looks just all out bizarre when you watch the trailer for this. So my question for you is, are you guys excited about WandaVision? Are you disappointed we're not getting it till January? Kevin.
I am excited about it. I really was hoping it would hit December when it was originally announced, because there's nothing really to look forward to now. There's not a lot to look forward to in the holidays, except for the end of The Mandalorian. And so I was kind of hoping to get that holiday fix with it, but looks like they're just delaying it a month. But I'm excited because Vision and Wanda's characters in the MCU were one of the highlights for me. And so I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. And I think it was weird for a reason. And I'm really curious to see how this show is going to fit into the universe.
Yeah, I have some theories on that. Jonathan, are you familiar with WandaVision? Do you have Disney Plus?
I got Disney Plus to watch The Mandalorian, all the episodes at once, and some of the Disney documentaries, but I've let it lapse until Mandalorian is finished again for season 2. So, but I am excited by the show. I think the trailer looks really good.
Yeah.
Really crazy trailer. So I will watch that. Yeah.
Mr. Hadley, the rumors are that this show is going to have a direct tie-in at some point with the new Doctor Strange film that's coming out, being worked on now. We're not quite sure when it's going to come out, especially tying in with the multiverse and the powers of Scarlet Witch and her tying with Doctor Strange. Are you excited for WandaVision, and is the trailer just completely out there?
I am really excited for it. I think it's unlike, I've got a little bit bored of the MCU the last few years. I wasn't as sort of charmed by Endgame as the rest of the world. Sorry, but yeah, as a big Marvel fan, right from when I was a kid, these are the sort of stories that I'd like to see. I've always liked these two characters. I'm old enough to remember that original maxi series, the 12-issue maxi series.
Oh yes, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
It was great, and so pairing them together like this for a longer form study of the characters in relation to one another, pull in some of that sort of tapestry, the broader Marvel universe. I'm there. I'm really into the idea that the MCU, whether it's on the big screen or the small screen, can really evolve now. And they can put some of these characters, so focus on the characters again, rather than sheer spectacle and being audacious. Focus on those characters and use them to tell stories that are particular to them. I think this is a fine example, really promising show. I think it's 8 or 10 episodes. Is it, Kyle? I don't know.
I think it's 8.
A tight run. And yeah, I think that they've pulled in some strings from the Vision mini-series as well from a few years ago, where he was living a sort of very domestic life. Yes, so it's all sounding good to me. I don't know who the directors are. I don't know who's actually put these scripts together, who's beaten it all into shape. And you know what? I don't think I want to know until after the fact. I want to be taken away by the magic of it all. And I think both Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, is it?
Yeah, Elizabeth.
They're both brilliant, glove fit for the parts, both of them.
Yeah. Now, that kind of leads into the next topic here, guys. It ties in with Disney. Disney's bumped both Free Guy and Death in the Nile into 2021 now. That leaves one really big film left on the 2020 docket, and that's Wonder Woman 84, which is supposed to open Christmas Day. COVID is spiking again here in the States. I know you guys are back in lockdown.
Yeah.
They haven't officially announced anything. I want to ask each of you guys, do you think Wonder Woman 84 is going to get moved? And do you think, are we talking now about having to take some of these bigger pictures and moving them to streaming service? Because 2021 is looking incredibly crowded. Jonathan, I want to start with you on this one.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I think almost certainly some of these films are going to have to go to streaming. I think the one I was kind of looking forward to, although I've been a little bit funny about the last couple of Bond films, was No Time to Die. I thought that it looks like it's going to be a good send-off for Daniel Craig. And of course, that's been pushed back a few times. And so there's been quite a lot of discussion, isn't there, about will that go to streaming? And actually,
I think Netflix and some other main streamers are bidding on that.
I believe so. Yeah, the last one I heard was actually HBO Max in the last few days. And I think just because the amount of money it costs the studios to have these films sitting on the virtual shelf, digital shelf or whatever, the amount that we don't even think about, when it comes to, I don't know, it costs a lot of money anyway. I think they're going to have to put things on streaming, and I would pay for it. I would pay a little bit more for a new Bond film to see it soon, quickly, on the day of release. And I suspect, I think that'll happen. Sadly, it is sad, and I would love to, but there's no cinema open near me now. They're all closed.
Yeah, that's become a problem. Kevin, where do you weigh in on this? Do you think Wonder Woman 84 is? I think it's going to get moved. I think it's just an eventuality now.
I think it's going to get moved too, especially with the state of the rise of COVID cases that are happening right now here in the States. Christmas Day, though, I'll be honest with you, had in the past a great draw to being, people getting out of the house and doing something together and going to a movie, because a lot of places are closed on Christmas Day except for movie theaters. And it is in the past been a big opening day for many, many reasons. And usually too, it's like, this is where your Oscar contenders would come out as well, your Scorsese films and stuff like that. But Oscars, I don't even know if that's going to be a thing this year at all. So I don't know, but I tell you right now, I think this is going to be a sign of things to come of if, if movies are going to sell these streaming rights to a streamer first. And, personally, I would drop down $30 to watch this at home. Any of these big ones, including, of course, the Daniel Craig Bond film. Give that to me right now. I mean, let them stream it for a while. If they want to do a theatrical release when it's safe, then they do that and then release it on physical media.
Yeah, everything is just in such confusion right now. Dan, what do you feel? I know you've been really excited for Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah, big fan of Wonder Woman, big fan of Bond, and I can't see Wonder Woman sticking that date. Not a chance. And it's just something that, I in fact, I'd already sort of put it out of my mind. I think the disappointment, like you guys, I was really looking forward to No Time to Die twice. And so I've sort of, I'm not convinced we're ever going to see that next April. So I've tried to put that out of my mind, and I've already put Wonder Woman out of my mind. I'd forgotten that they hadn't moved it, in fact. It's just for my own sanity.
Just on a side note, I still go to like Target and whatever stores I can to look at what collectibles and figures, and all of the figures for like a lot of these Marvel and DC movies have already been out for months now. But there's no movie to create excitement to push the sales of those things. The Black Widow stuff's been out, the Wonder Woman stuff's been out, and it's weird.
I saw some stuff for the Top Gun sequel yesterday as well.
Oh, exactly. Yes. And it's like, now they're not being released together. And so that's just a weird side effect of this.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I'm just going to say quickly, the other thing, reading just again, mainly about Bond, was, they've had 2 shots at the marketing budget, and it cost tens of millions of dollars to promote them. How can they afford to do another round of Bond and Wonder Woman and all these films on the sides of buses, into the internet and magazines? It's crazy. I just don't think they can afford it.
I'm going to guess this Bond film probably cost around $200 million to produce it and make it, right? Much more money to promote it. If a streaming service like HBO Max says, we'll give you $200 million to let us do it, are you going to cut some losses, but still let them do it, and then maybe release in the theater to recoup some theater and video to recoup some revenue?
I think that's a big thing too, is that these movies are sitting on the shelf because not only they're not out in theaters, they're not out on DVD to buy or digital to buy.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing there too. So we're gonna see how that plays out, guys. We've talked a lot about it on the network. Billy Kings has done a couple specials. Kevin and I talked about it on Culture Clash, but real quick, Sean Connery passed away. He's a legend. Who doesn't love Sean Connery? He's James Bond, Ramirez, so many things. I want to give each of you a chance to give a minute or two just on your thoughts of Sean Connery. What was your favorite Sean Connery movie or movies? Jonathan, you're the guest. I want to start with you.
Well, I mean, myself and Kevin spoke about this the other week in the sort of tribute episode. Sean is a local lad to where I live. Where I'm sitting, he was born maybe 20 minutes away from here in Fountain Bridge. And as I also said to Kevin, Sean's brother lives in the very next street to me, maybe 5 minutes away. So he means a lot to this city and to me as well. So favorite Bond film. So I've got a cat crying here. Favorite Bond film has to be Goldfinger with Sean. But one of my favorite Connery performances is a film called The Hill, which I was tweeting about the other night, from 1965, which people need to try and search out. I think it's on iTunes in the UK, only on iTunes. Kevin, I think you said it's on DVD in America.
Amazon has it on DVD for like $14 or $15.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic film. Please watch it if you've not seen it. You'll see Sean in a whole new light. But of course, there's so many fantastic films with Sean, isn't there? Last Crusade being another favorite of mine.
Mr. Hadley.
Yes, Sean Connery. I was gutted too. I mean, we talked about it at length over on the Facebook channel that I've been running, and you think to yourself, how shocked can you possibly be when a 90-year-old man who's lived a very full, very happy and fulfilling life how sad can you be when he passes away, particularly when he's a total stranger? But we all did feel like we knew Sean Connery, and we certainly knew what he stood for, what he represented. And I think that he did represent a huge amount to multiple generations of people. Superb actor. I think that sometimes gets overlooked, and he's been disrespected as well quite a lot in his time. Not least of all when he got up to accept that Best Supporting Actor Oscar for The Untouchables, and they played the James Bond music. Ouch, terrible gaff. But for the rest of the time, I think people did and have revered Sean Connery, have given him a huge amount of respect, notoriety, and performances. Yes, oh God. Special shout out to the cameo in Time Bandits, which I think is tremendous. It's really good fun, and he's a great sport in that. But I think overall, Highlander's up there. It really is. I think he's sensational in that film. You've got the biggest hat you've ever seen. He looks absolutely incredible. Yeah, he looks more formidable and stronger than ever. He relishes the part, the ridiculousness of it. You see, because he takes that so seriously, I think that Sean Connery really anchors that film with truth. And when there's so much about that film, I love it just as much as you guys do. But it's an outrageous film, and Sean Connery somehow manages to pin it down. But other than that, I've got to say, From Russia with Love, I think he's that second Bond movie, after the proto one, Doctor No. I think in the second film, it's where he wears Bond the best, and where he, I think he believes in himself a lot more in that. And it's just, he seems unstoppable in that movie, and he plays on all these different levels. And it was just before, because I think that the Bond thing, it really kicked in with Goldfinger. That's when the gadgets kicked in, and the villains, the sort of the more outlandish villains, that all started to kick in, and the hollowed out volcanoes and things like that. I think From Russia with Love is a big film. It's a beautiful film, sumptuous, but it's quite, it's very sort of nailed down. Knows exactly what it's doing, and he was like really, really on point on that. So yeah, I think I've given myself 2.
Mr. Reitzel.
I got to agree with Dan. From Russia with Love is my favorite Connery Bond film. Loved him in that. As I mentioned, Outland, one of my favorites here, which is basically High Noon in space, which is good. My favorite, of course, is As Ramirez in the original Highlander, because that's where I think I remember really noticing him first. I knew him as the Bond guy, but this was the film that I remember him most and hold dearly to as one of my favorite performances. Other honorable mentions that I love is Henry Jones, of course, in Indiana Jones 3. He was witty and funny in that one as well. And Hunt for Red October, and I love him in The Rock.
Yes,
I'm
with you on The Rock. I loved him in Russia with Love. From Russia with Love is probably his best Bond film. I loved him in The Man Who Would Be King. Highlander, obviously. Even though it was the movie that drove him to retirement, I really enjoyed him in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
He was good.
So, I mean, it's a legend. He was 90. Another film of his that I like that's a little off the wall is Medicine Man, with Lorraine Bracco in that as well. So, but you know what, guys? Yeah, also good. But there's so much going on too. Mandalorian is here. We're 3 episodes into this new season.
But first, real quick, Jonathan, have you seen the newest episodes of Mandalorian?
No, I've only seen the first series.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Jonathan, close your ears for a minute. We're going to try not to go too spoiler.
We won't do spoilers.
They won't do too spoiler heavy, but I want to get everybody's at least impressions of what they've seen from Mandalorian season 2. Is probably the most hyped returning show this year, to be honest with you. So, Dan, you're from how are people responding over there in the UK to season 2 of The Mandalorian?
It's not as widely seen. I think Disney Plus has had a certain degree of pickup over here, but I think people have been slower to take it. I think largely people have had it for the children, the people that have had it. But people who've seen Mandalorian really like it. There are billboards up, there are bus posters up that Jonathan was talking about, and the Baby Yoda thing. It's not it's not quite as loud as in other parts of the world, but it's definitely happened. And the people who've seen it, I think it's business as usual. It's more of the same. Season 2, if it ain't broke, really, why fix it? But that first episode, that 50-minute one, I mean, that I said something about that on Facebook, that this show, it's the antidote to any middle-aged cynicism that's creeping in with me. It manages to I don't know, make me feel like a kid again. Genuinely swept away with the adventure, and I've described it before on this show as the flavour of Star Wars is there. But it's the second one in particular really surprised me. Had me on the edge of my seat. Yes, so it's a great series, and hopefully we're going to have another few more seasons worth of this quality of entertainment and clear and economical storytelling as well. It's not oversaturated with characters. It's not overladen with personal politics. It's just in the business of entertaining people, and it is literate as well. It does speak to something inside. I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Kevin, I've absolutely loved it. It's everything I want from my Star Wars, and I just gotta say, after the most recent episode, I literally posted on social media without giving any spoilers. I could just say I can hear every Star Wars fan's head exploding right now after watching that episode. You had a great meme that you posted to an old classic scene from the movie Hook, where the young blind kid is touching Robin, doing his face, and he's like, "Peter, it's you." But the meme says, "Star Wars, it's you." I know you're all in on Mandalorian right now.
Yeah, Dan, you nailed it on the head when you said it's the antidote for us that are the older generation Star Wars fans that have become a little disillusioned with probably the sequel series, to be honest with you.
But just entertainment generally, not even other Star Wars, just general entertainment, everything else.
Yes, but you're right. And that's what this show has done. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have really outdone themselves, and it makes me proud to be a Star Wars fan. And it is hit so many notes of nostalgia and is done so well in so many different ways. And it just the second season did not slow down at all. And I just want to say, without any spoilers, the newest episode that is out right now pays wonderful tribute to the Clone Wars. And I just want to say so much, but I don't want to spoil it. But I literally teared up with joy when I was watching this for the first time at 2 a.m. in the morning before I went to work. This is the one show that has altered my sleeping habits for Friday, Thursday nights, because I need to see this show before I go into work, because I work with some younger kids as well that are Star Wars fans. And they, a lot of them kind of feel the same way with where Star Wars had been before The Mandalorian came out. And I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mandalorian. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jon Favreau. Thank you, everybody out there. Let's move on to Doctor Who, though, because there's been an interesting story that's been breaking in about the last week. And I know, Dan, you have probably been all over this with Type 40. Are we only looking at an 8-episode season for the next season of Doctor Who? And is this really how Chibnall Whittaker is going to end under these circumstances? Though I'm thinking, there's a lot of people out there who would say, can you shorten it to 4 so we can get them out of here faster? But since we've got you, Dan, we've got Jonathan here, who are both huge Doctor Who. Fill us in, Dan. What's going on backstage?
Yes, it is true. And yes, it's true. And yes, this is, from what I hear, this is how they're going to go out. And yes, Chris Chibnall, who's the showrunner of Doctor Who, made a statement a few days ago about it. They started filming last week after a few, what would you call it, sort of false reports that were in the press and on social media. But they did start filming. And there's going to be 8 episodes instead of 11. So my understanding is that 7 of them will screen in one block, with the 8th one held over as a special. But some fan sites and some feeds are reporting that this will definitely get broadcast next autumn. But Chris Chibnall didn't say that. So obviously it could be on next September. But with this shooting schedule, I don't think that's a given either. I still think it could be held over until 2022. I'm pleased for the people who people who are employed there, that they're going to be working and whatever else. And of course, I'm interested as to where it's going to go and what's going to happen. But yes, I'm still sort of tapping my fingers really and waiting for this nightmare to end. Yes, the fewer the better for me. Okay, so I hope they stay safe. I hope they have a pleasant working environment. But I can't wait till they go. I think everybody knows how I feel about it.
Jonathan, this has been probably one of the more controversial Doctor Who runs ever that I can recall. 8 episodes. It's going to be another big break between seasons, obviously a little bit beyond their control. I can't fault them there. And it looks like from everything I'm hearing too, that this is probably it for Chibnall and Whittaker after this. Kind of out with a whimper.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a roller coaster experience with this team, and I remember actually, I think maybe when Kevin was here in Scotland, I think we were talking about this in the film house here in Edinburgh, and I said originally when I heard about a female Doctor, I wasn't very happy as a long-term fan, and then I came round to it and thought, okay, don't be like that, the doctor can change. That's the point of the series. So I went with it, but I'm now at the point after the stuff that happened in the last season, which is not really a spoiler to say the timeless child stuff. I'm just kind of almost out at the moment. I just think the show has been. Of course, it's all personal. For me, it's just not my show anymore. So, yeah, I'm not really bothered about how many episodes. The Christmas special this year, I might not even watch it. That's kind of where I am, which is really sad because I love it. I'd love to be able to support it, but I think Chibnall has just done some things that are almost indefensible for me to that show. So.
That's almost the exact arc that I've had with it. At the start, really, because my Doctor is a male. I think the character should have remained a male, but I can see that my perception of it is completely subjective, and so I got to an objective place with it. I think, okay, I'm going to talk about this. I like Jodie Whittaker. I've liked Chris Chibnall's other stuff. There's no reason why this couldn't be good. And I agree with everything you've just said, Jonathan. It's said with a heavy heart, I know. I mean, and the lump in your throat, we can't help it because this show means so much to us. But really, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Chris is, if I really can't, if there's a show to save after this, brilliant. But it's a good job, and I think that you probably agree with me, Jonathan. It's a good job that Doctor Who is about more than just that TV show. It's about the books, it's about the audios, it's about the comics, it's about the fans, it's about all of us.
Totally, yeah. And Dan will probably remember. I don't know, a year ago or something, I joined one of his Facebook groups. And there was a lot of negative chat. And at that time, I was trying to be really positive. And I actually left the group. And I said to Dan, look, I'm sorry, I want to be in the group. I can't take all the negativity. And I realize now I'm the one that's being negative. And it's just weird that things can change so quickly, isn't it?
The tide has changed so much, Jonathan, in a short period of time. I mean, I know people, and it's not. I mean, the way the cast and crew try to pass it off as well. I won't go on about this too long. Is there anybody who doesn't like it, even now, even after what they did in the Timeless Children, destroying the mythology? Even after that, if you don't like it, it's because you're a sexist.
Yeah,
and it's just so disingenuous. It's untrue. Because I through Type 40, people have got in touch with me. Hello, Gene, if you're watching. People who got on board, who some of them, their first episode was the Jodie Whittaker stuff, and they feel betrayed by it. They feel disappointed by it. So he's not satisfying anybody, and the tide has massively turned to the point where at one time it was 2/3 in favour of certainly the female Doctor and everything else, and it's now, I'd say, it's 2/3 against, if not 3/4. The longer it goes on, the more decisions they make, the more they lose people. It's a desperate shame, Kyle.
Kevin,
we took over.
Yeah, Kevin, this has a sense of deja vu with another fandom that we love here in the States.
Yeah. Which one? Pick one.
I'm thinking more than about some wars in space. I'm thinking.
Yeah. But I just want to mention JT in the chat was responding to what you said, Jonathan, saying almost out. Just close the door, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Doctor Who fan.
Good points, though, especially Dan about what you said about the fear of being called a sexist. It goes way beyond that. It's basically writing and creative forces that have seemed to have failed the show.
Yeah, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and it's been tough to get through this. I'm a huge Jodie Whittaker fan. It just seems like this has just gone off the rails, and it's just time for a change, even if we have to go without Who for another year or so while they figure it all out. One last quick news piece, guys. We were talking about Sean Connery passing, an American icon, Canadian icon, even here in the States, and Alex Trebek, the host of Jeopardy, passed away. Kevin, many a nights where I got educated watching Alex Trebek host Jeopardy.
Yeah, it's funny that there was this ongoing joke, specifically in the late 80s and early 90s. You had Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Back to back. And it was like Alex Trebek's, his show, Jeopardy, was like, you really had to pay attention and maybe be smart. But if you wanted to lose yourself and just watch some dumb show, you'd watch Wheel of Fortune and Vanna White. But, it's so funny because that show is so good and it's gotten so much notoriety for, being a well-written quiz show for very, very long. And Alex Trebek has just been wonderful. And to where Alex Trebek is, even, had fun with the role and done other appearances through whether it's TV shows or whatever. But, to me, I will always remember, the Saturday Night Live skits that parodied Jeopardy, and then Sean Connery being parodied as a oncoming guest as well. But Alex Trebek, I know he's been fighting this for a long time, and he's an icon, and he will be missed.
Yeah, he was great hosting this show. He wasn't afraid to get a little smarmy with the contestants too when they just give horrible answers. But one of my favorite Alex Trebek moments in Hollywood: white men can't jump.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Rosie Perez. But I gotta ask both of you, Dan, and you, Jonathan. I don't know how big a Jeopardy was worldwide, but are you guys at least familiar with it, Alex Trebek?
Dan?
I'm familiar with the format of Jeopardy because there was a version of that on TV in the UK, wasn't there, Jonathan? But I can't remember who hosted it.
It was ITV, yeah.
It was on ITV. But Alex Trebek, it's just one of those names that I know from American movies, from cameos and stuff. I couldn't tell, but I saw a picture of him and I saw the outpouring of affection and respect for the man. And, I find that quite touching because, we've got similar characters over here, similar personalities. A couple of years ago, a guy called Bruce Forsyth passed away, and he was probably of a similar kind of profile, and there was a lot of public warmth towards him, and Terry Wogan and all sorts of other people. So we can empathize. It's nice to see when all this affection comes out for people. It's terrible that they've passed away, obviously, particularly if they've suffered. But I do like how people sort of rally and share the love for these people.
I want to mention that Nathaniel said something in the chat that I've also seen on social media, that there is a push to have LeVar Burton host Jeopardy.
Yeah, I know that. I think that would be very interesting.
I love LeVar Burton. Yeah.
The rumor is that actually Alex Trebek had handpicked somebody to take the place of him after Jeopardy, after he passed away for Jeopardy, and it was the TV broadcaster for the LA Kings, Kevin. Apparently, he has like an interesting background.
The hockey team?
The hockey team.
Broadcaster for the hockey team?
But apparently he has quite a history with Alex Trebek, and Alex Trebek had tremendous respect for him.
Guy.
So, hey, you never know. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with our feature presentation.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Bloody Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And welcome back to the Fandom Show. Before we get to our feature presentation, though, we're going to do something real quick because Mr. Reitzel, you have a question for Mr. Hadley.
Yes, real quick out to the chat. Let us know some of your holiday fandom traditions that we're going to be talking about in the feature thing. But I want to touch on the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's Dan's fault.
Be my big man forget Jonathan.
Okay, so I want to get your guys' thoughts on the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Since it's since the start of COVID-19, the movie and television delays, many people are streaming and binging new and old favorite movie franchises, which includes the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am currently watching it again for the second time this year, but I'm doing, I did the chronological order earlier this year, but right now I'm doing the theatrical release. And there was a great article that came out that talked about the cool reasons why to do both. Theatrical brings back a lot of good memories for me. Saw pretty much all of these on opening night. And it has really spawned into a wonderful fandom and has changed movie history for so many reasons. But I want to know is, where does the MCU now stand in your fandom since the original Iron Man came out in 2008, and of course going all the way up and through recently through last year, 2019, which ended phase 3, Spider-Man Far From Home, after the Infinity Wars and such. How has it aged for you? Has your previous opinions of the franchise and certain opinions on movies in the MCU changed? And the reason why I brought all this up, Dan, is because you posted an article, the news about Chris Pratt, his character of Star-Lord, joining Thor 4, Love and Thunder. And of course, they had a cool adventure together in Infinity War and brought those two universes together. But you said in your post in your group, the Space Book, a sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and superheroes group, you said, quote, "This news does nothing for me whatsoever. Have a feeling Thor 4 will be even worse and messier than the third."
Yes.
Now, the reason why I bring this up, Dan, is because when it comes to the fandom of the movie itself, Thor Ragnarok, it's right now currently listed as in the top 5 of IMDb, the Marvel MCU. It's top 5 right now. But you kind of hit a chord with me, just not because I was surprised how you felt about the film, but because when I first saw it, I was underwhelmed. But then I revisited it again and again, and I enjoy it a lot more, and it's up there as one of my favorites in the MCU. But what was it about it and that made you say this?
I don't like it. I don't like the film. Firstly, I'm a big Thor fan. Grew up reading the Walt Simonson stuff in the 80s. In particular, all the stuff where he got turned into a frog and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But I read all those issues back through the from about 83 through to say 93, something like that. It was a big chunk of time reading Thor, and not that means my opinion's any better than anybody else's, but I do know the character. I do, and I've got affection for the character. And the first 2 movies, I really like both of them to different degrees. The way that one does, and I recognized that was Thor. You know, Alan Turner's and Kenneth Branagh's interpretations of the character, the way they framed them, may have been quite different, but it was still Thor. The dynamic was the same. Chris Hemsworth was playing Thor. With the third one, I got the impression with Taika Waititi joining that they had lost confidence in the character on his own and lost confidence in their own ability to tell those high fantasy stories with that more. I think that Thor is quite a straight-faced character and quite stoic and a classical hero in many respects. And I thought there was a lot of gas left in that tank. And so for them to choose that particular creative to steer the third one, to the director would decide on the tone and the pitch and the pace of it. So for them to choose him to do that, okay, these things are open to reinterpretation. One film like that, which just wasn't my sensibilities. I barely recognized the character of Thor in that. I found the humor infantile, repetitive. I thought the film itself, it was paced okay, but the way it chopped and changed was quite jarring. There was lots of what they knew worked in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's as if they looked at it and thought, we haven't got another Guardians film out in a while, but let's just turn the Thor film into a Guardians film. People like the knob gags, people like the fart gags, people like the cool music. That will be enough. And for a lot of people it was. So
gotcha.
What am I to judge? But to me, it was a betrayal of the character. It was a needless change. They should have found somebody. Okay, Taika Waititi. They obviously wanted him.
Right.
In my opinion, Taika Waititi didn't want to really work on a Thor film. He wanted to work on an MCU film, and they should have found somebody who had a connection with Thor, who understood that character and could have maintained some sort of integrity, done something different with it, but still have kept it as Thor. Otherwise, it's just another MCU movie.
Okay.
There we
Kyle?
are.
I just want to weigh in on what Dan said. First of all, he referenced the Simonson run of Thor, which is considered by many to be one of the greatest runs of Thor ever. And that really focused a lot on the mythology of Thor and the Norse and the gods and things like that.
To me, that's Thor's USP. All of that contrasted against our world. That's the USP of this character.
I think what you had happen in Ragnarok, and I enjoy Ragnarok. I think it's fun. I think it does. What I like about it is it does take some of those Simonson things and add them in. Maybe not in the way you want to see him being a traditionalist, but it did have a lot of nice little Thor Easter eggs in it. But I get where Dan is coming from in the aspect of the comedy angle. But I think that it happened in part because of Taika, but in part because of Chris Hemsworth. Because I think that the MCU knew they needed to keep Chris Hemsworth happy because he's the one that really has the staying power to go into the next phase of the original Avengers.
True.
And Chris Hemsworth, say what you will about him, he is great in comedic roles. I think he is hilarious when he does comedic roles, and I think he wanted to expand Thor out himself to that. I think if Ragnarok had been just a standalone thing and you didn't get what they did with Thor in Infinity War and in Endgame, you maybe look at it a little differently. I think Love and Thunder, what you're going to see is I think it is a little bit of the Guardians of the Galaxy thing going on here. I think what's going to end up happening with Love and Thunder, it's going to wrap up a lot of dangling plot threads with Thor and bringing back Taika because Ragnarok did so well. But I think after Love and Thunder, because Hemsworth says he wants to play Thor as long as he can, I would not be surprised to see get back to a little bit more some traditional Thor things as well. But I think they're going to use Love and Thunder to wrap up some stuff and kind of tie up any dangling loose plot points from there. As far as some of your questions, Kevin, the MCU is probably my favorite franchise right now. I say that being a diehard comic fan. There has not been an MCU movie that's disappointed me. I've enjoyed them all. Yes, some are better than others, but the magic and what they've done, 23 films in a little over a 10-year span, tying together everything like they have, even when you have other studios like Sony involved with the Spider-Man franchise, some of the issues they've had with Hulk as well. I mean, it's just been probably the biggest, most undertaking project in cinematic movie history. And they came out of it smelling like a rose and building this phenomenal world. Phase 4 is going to be interesting because we're taking a turn now. And this is the question. Can we do this turn? Obviously, the loss of Chadwick Boseman is a huge blow to the future of the MCU as well. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think COVID was actually a blessing for the MCU because I do think there was some MCU fatigue going out there. And I think having this year break with really nothing new MCU-wise has got people getting hungry for the MCU again.
That's an excellent point. Jonathan, before I go over to you, I just want to have Dan ask real quick, where is the MCU in general, the whole universe, and how does it fit with you now?
I'll be happy to see it continue and to sort of go into this new phase. I know why they did what they did, and I can appreciate the Infinity Saga and why they wrapped it up the way that they did. For me, there's a danger in going that big with something. I think Michael Bay fell into that trap in the second Transformers film, didn't he? And once you've been that big, I think to make it work again, I think you really have to pare it right the way back down. So having the TV shows really does help you able to focus on character more than sheer spectacle. That's what I hope of these films, because the ones that I have enjoyed, I've enjoyed most of them. There's very, very few. I think that there's only one objectively bad Marvel movie, and that's Captain Marvel. But there's 3 or 4 that I find subjectively just aren't my taste, that don't really please me, of which Thor Ragnarok is one. But I expect more variety from the MCU going forward. I think there's a house style which is now starting to okay, no, it hasn't held it back because it's made a lot of money. But I think if they don't deviate from their house style, at least early doors in Phase 4, it will start to harm the series going forward. People are not going to be satisfied with the same old formula and that same look to absolutely everything. This is why I find DC much more interesting, because DC, just like Warner Brothers, is historically more creator-led, and it just interests me a little bit more.
I just want to weigh in real quick what Dan says as far as the change in Phase 4. When you look at what the upcoming movies are, you have a Black Widow solo film, you have Eternals, you have a second Doctor Strange film, you have Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. The prospect of that is like, it's really something different.
They're definitely doing some different things here with it. So I think that's part of Phase 4. And when you look ahead, we know the X-Men and Fantastic Four are coming. We don't know when, but we've got a whole other big wave coming here of the big Marvel stuff. So that's what's going to be what's key to watch in the future of the MCU.
Real quick, fellow Scott, Stevie McLeod is in the chat. He wanted to say hi, so thank you for joining in. Jonathan, where does the MCU fit with you right now?
I watch them, not all of them. I don't know. I watch them when I see one I want to watch. I do enjoy them.
There's a lot of people like that. Yeah.
I do enjoy them, and I think as a spectacle, there's not enough kind of big blockbustery type films that I like to watch. Transformers films I can't be bothered with. So, sometimes it's nice just to go to IMAX and watch a big blockbuster. So, again, I can't really say much more than that, but I'm not. I keep a sort of a half an eye on what's happening. I read the news about Chris Pratt going to Thor. So when some interesting news pops up, I read it, and then I sometimes watch the film.
Gotcha. Just to end on the MCU, according to IMDb ratings, the top 5 least favorite of the MCU is the least favorite one is Incredible Hulk, followed by Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: First Avenger, Captain Marvel, and Iron Man 2.
See, I disagree with a couple of those, but it's all subjective. Everybody has their favorites. But we talked some MCU, but let's move on to what we were going to be our feature presentation. We're going to have a little fun here. We have COVID, we have elections, we have politics, all this stuff going on, but the holidays are upon us. It kind of hit me the other day. I went into my local Target store. They had all their Christmas decorations up, the Christmas trees, the Christmas music started playing. It kind of actually felt it for the first time a little bit. So the question I had, Kevin, I threw this out to the social media too. You got some responses there, but I wanted to ask the panel, what are some of your fandom holiday traditions? We have our holiday traditions, but we also have our fandom holiday traditions.
Yes, to be specific, obviously you have your classical holiday stuff, whether it includes the meal or stuff that you do with the family. But is there certain movies, certain TV series that feels holiday to you? And I want to throw this out to the chat real quick before we get to you guys. Post it in the chat. Let us know.
Yep. So, you know what, Kevin, I know what yours is. I've been doing this for you for almost 6 years now, Kevin. Mr. Hallmark movies.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the Hallmark Channel cheesy holiday movie stuff. I can just binge a few of those because the plot's all the same. We know how it's going to end. We just want to see how it gets there, but just real quick, there's two movies I always make time for, and that is It's a Wonderful Life and Scrooged. And we'll be doing actual Scrooged live couch potato theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network in December. So make sure you check that out. But then I mix it around with the other classic films that I'll watch. I'll watch Elf. I love Elf. I'll watch the original, I guess, Miracle on 34th Street. But now, I want to go back to Christmas Vacation. I haven't seen that in a long time. I'm a little over A Christmas Story with Ralphie and his gun. I've just seen it too many times. I'm going to wait a while till I watch that again. But that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, it's time to get the UK perspective, because there's part of me that's always wanted to be in the UK for Christmas. I think it would be just interesting to see how it's handled, how the holidays are handled differently. So, Jonathan, what are some of your Christmas fandom traditions?
I think there are two main ones. The first one is a BBC TV show from the 1980s called The Box of Delights. I don't know if that ever made it across to America, but Patrick Troughton, who played my favorite Doctor, Doctor Who, played the second Doctor. He is in this fantastic show, which is about a young boy who's coming back from school to the kind of middle of nowhere in England, in the snow, and the wolves are running is a kind of a phrase that runs through this show, and it's just a magical. It's based on a novel. John Masefield, I think it was, that wrote the novel, which I remember starting years ago. And anyway, it's just the most Christmassy of Christmas TV shows. It was a kids show in the 80s, and if you've not seen it, the DVD is out, and it's amazing, and it will make you feel like Christmas has come. The other one I try and watch every year is A Muppet Family Christmas, which is an amazing. It's kind of like talking about Avengers Assemble and things. It's a bit like that. It's kind of like the that version of the Muppet world, because it's
just to clarify, is it the Muppet Christmas Carol movie, or is there another special?
Well, it's another special actually. It's
yeah.
TV special from I'm going to say maybe 1989-ish.
Okay, I need to revisit that.
Yeah, and so it takes place at Fozzie's mom's house, again in the countryside, and it starts off with the Muppet Show gang going to visit Fozzie's mom, and all the other Muppet characters. Sesame Street.
Yeah, you had me at Fozzie's mom. I gotta go watch that again.
They all get together, and to say much more would be to spoil it, but there's some great running gags, and I can watch it every year. Muppet Christmas Carol, actually, there was another one that I do try and watch every year as well. The cinema, which I always seem to mention when I'm on here, Film House in Edinburgh, the show.
Great place.
At the cinema. And Die Hard as well. I try and watch that. Is it a Christmas movie? Or is it...
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's a Christmas movie.
And I'm sure there's other things, but those are the main ones that come to mind.
Mr. Hadley.
Yes, Jonathan's mentioned it, The Box of Delights. I watch that pretty much every year. If I don't get it in the average year, then there's something wrong. Something's gone really, really wrong. I think the only years I haven't watched it were when my children were really young. And apart from that, I do watch that every year. In fact, I'm about to interview somebody who's just written the book on that, funnily enough. So
I want to get that book. Yeah, I can't wait.
I got an advanced copy of it. It's great. And yes, The Box of Delights, just like Jonathan said. And a little show called Doctor Who used to put out a Christmas special every year, and they were sort of unmissable and spectacular, and brought the entire family. In fact, they brought the entire country together, and they, I couldn't think of it, the last few brought the entire world together. So I do sort of miss that. a lot. Other than that, I tend to reach for the old sitcoms, pretty much always British as well. Things like Only Fools and Horses, Steptoe and Son, Porridge, Jonathan, all of these shows. And, they're old fashioned now. I mean, a lot of these shows, they occasionally they bring some of them back for a reunion, but mostly stuff that was made in the 70s and the 80s. I continue to watch them now. I've also got a load of old episodes of Top of the Pops and things like that from the 80s. So it's Christmas now is becoming increasingly about nostalgia for me. But there is occasionally things that do become sort of rituals. Some that my kids watch. Home Alone is a massive family tradition in the Hadley household, even though my kids are now all at university mostly. But we'll still get that in. And the same with Elf, with Will Ferrell in, and a couple of other movies. But TV-wise, I like to make myself smile. Keep it funny. Yeah.
I think for me, I'm always a fan of the childhood Christmas specials, the things that I watched when I was a kid. Christmas was a little weird for me because I was living in Alaska and I was about 40 minutes from the town of North Pole, Alaska. So Christmas gets a little intense there. But I like the classics like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But I also like finding some of those more obscure Christmas ones. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. There was one called Santa Bear that John Malkovich actually voiced Santa Claus in. There's a couple others out there that I like to try and find. And of course, there's the movies. I watched Die Hard. I am with Kevin on Scrooged. It's a Wonderful Life is always a great thing. I'm so over A Christmas Story right now. It's beyond compare. But one of the other things I like to do is you talk about your sitcoms. I like to go through some of my favorite sitcoms and watch the Christmas related episodes. And that's something that's always, I think, is enjoyed. Obviously, Dan on those is the first what I consider the first real Doctor Who Christmas special, which is the first Matt Smith Christmas special. To me, it's still an all-time classic, and I love that. But
Kyle, you convinced me to watch one of the most best Thanksgiving Day TV show episodes of all time, and I actually have purchased that on iTunes because of you.
Yes, of course, we talked about that a little earlier. WKRP in Cincinnati, Turkeys Away is a.
I'm going to write this down. That's the second time I've mentioned this, Jonathan. It's got to be worth catching, isn't it?
You can't put it into words. You can't put it into words.
WKRP, about a Cincinnati radio station, and they try to do a Thanksgiving turkey giveaway that goes horribly wrong.
Horribly might be an understatement.
There we are on the fabled list, the list that keeps growing and growing and growing. It's on there.
But Kevin, we had some social media response to this as well.
Yes, I did want to give a shout out, starting with this, to the chat, because they're here now. Stephen McLeod, our fellow Scott there, he likes to do the Indiana Jones marathon in the holidays, and he also does the Bond movies. Now, Nathaniel, also a big fan, of course, of that WKRP episode. And I've been seeing this a lot in the thread, the classic White Christmas film. He likes to do that. And also, he says that he wants some UK Christmas traditions to come over here to the US, like Boxing Day. He just also found out that bacon wrapped sausage being a thing.
Yeah, it's
a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Not for me. I've been vegetarian for 30 years, but yeah, the smell of them, I still enjoy the smell.
I just want to also mention, I put a thread out there. Our friend Carl Nordstrom says every Christmas Eve, I take in some good libation, watch Christmas movies, and build a Star Wars Lego set. And I asked him, what set are you building this year? And he put a picture of the Baby Yoda Lego set. Nathaniel, of course, said White Christmas, and he also talked about WKRP special episode. And they actually did a panel at Dragon Con, which was going to be held in this small room off in the basement somewhere. And it was like one of the most popular panels, and it overflowed, apparently. Haley said, I do like turkeys and homemade cranberry sauce. Christmas decorations do not go up until after my birthday. And Lee said also, what Lee Fillings, co-host of Bloody King, said White Christmas and A Christmas Story. And for my stepdad, we watched the older Christmas Carol. Aaron Head Moss, G.I. Joe Buddy here, says, I watch A Wonderful Life, and that's what I do as well. Blair Hiscock over there in Australia says, Family Carol's Ninth Dinner with an early screening of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation that our
that's a
friend
great
also Amy
film.
Nelson chimed in about. And I need to revisit that.
Yeah. No, and, that's the thing with the holidays, everybody just get together and enjoy some things. But you know what? Wrapping things up here on the Fandom Show. I want to thank Jonathan for being here. Obviously, Dan, Kevin. But
Thank you.
we always try to close out with giving everybody a kind of a final thought right now of something that's going on in fandom they want to bring attention to, or just a thought in general they want to bring out. So, Jonathan, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give us your fandom minute here as we close out the show.
Man, I wasn't prepared for this.
On the spot, buddy.
Oh, man, you've thrown me. I don't know. What can I say? The Boys. I mean, I'm enjoying The Boys, so I mean, people should watch The Boys. But I think I think personally, like I keep mentioning these old shows. Have a look through Amazon Prime, which is the only place really that seems to have them in the UK anyway, and try and look for some old shows. There's some great old ones actually on there in the UK called, Stephen J. Cannell. He did the A-Team. He did shows like Greatest American Hero, which
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street, Wise Guy, The Commish. And a lot of these have popped up on Amazon Prime. So please, I think, certainly from a sort of sci-fi fantasy world, Greatest American Hero, people have not watched that, then please give that a go because it's so much fun. Robert Culp and William Catt. So yeah, it took me a while, but I got something there.
Mr. Hadley.
He's had more time to think.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the. Here we go again. Amazon. I'm really enjoying the Truth Seekers show with Nick Frost.
I've heard about that.
Based spooky. I don't have to call it a sitcom or not. I think it's supposed to be a sitcom, but I think it's more geeky and more fantasy than they're letting on. It's very Scooby-Doo, a bit Doctor Who, a bit classic Doctor Who. Nick Frost is brilliant in it. Malcolm McDowell's in it, which is going to be a reason.
Oh, McDowell steals the show. McDowell steals that show.
Yeah, I'm only 3 or 4 in, but I'm really, really enjoying it. It's simple pleasures. And Nick Frost, he plays Nick Frost. It's not going to reinvent the wheel. It's certainly not going to change cult TV, but it's just really, really enjoyable and quite spooky as well. I'm not sure who directed it. I'm going to have to find out. The music's great. Yeah, Truth Seekers on Amazon Prime. That's my fandom minute.
Can I just jump in and cheat a little bit? Because you just reminded me about Scooby-Doo. There's a show I've been watching, and once again, it's on Amazon, but it's Scooby-Doo from a couple of years ago. I think it's Scooby-Doo Incorporated. Is that the name of it?
Mystery Incorporated. Yeah, it's good that.
I'm only now catching up with, and I'm sort of partway through season 1. A great little show that's well worth watching. Sorry, thought I'd mention that.
Mr. Reitzel.
COVID has been really tough for all of us for many, many reasons. And for personal reasons, myself, it's been tough. But it's one of those things where fandoms like this and the stuff that we share together here, not just on the Fandom Podcast Network, but stuff that we love and that we've been able to take time and spend a little extra attention to because we're quarantined, gives us a little bit of perspective on what's happening around the world and how many people are suffering and what COVID has done because of that and many other reasons. This type of entertainment brings us through. It carries us through. It keeps us from going a little insane, to be honest with you. And especially with all of the families that have had to, and mothers and fathers that either had to stay home and work home while their kids are around all the time and doing homeschooling and whatever they do. And that it also takes a toll. All of the first responders and medical workers that have had to deal with this firsthand all the time, that look for that moment of taking off that mask at home and taking the shoes off and being able to just, escape for a little bit. I have to wear a mask at work every day. Everyone does, and that is a big inconvenience. But when you look at the big picture, it is nice to know to come home and share this fandom with everyone in any way that you can, just to get through this year. And it's not going to end on December 31st, unfortunately. It's going to continue. We don't know how far it's going to continue. But lean on us, lean on fandoms to get you through to this. And, that's why I like being part of the Fandom Podcast Network and having you guys to bounce off of. And, it's funny, Dan, you were kind of writing a list down of stuff to check out. I have Rubik's Cube. I have Stargirl. I have Muppets Christmas television special. This is why I love doing this, because it reminds me of other stuff that I might have a tunnel vision for to enjoy. Now I can try something new. And that's what I love about hearing other people's opinion on fandom, and has changed my opinion that I've had preconceived notions of. So there you go.
Yeah. For me, it's all about changes. COVID-19 has changed the world. Events that have happened recently here in the United States have changed things drastically. We're all going through it and handling it in different ways, but the one consistency is something we believe here at the Fandom Podcast Network is enjoy your fandom. And there's so many different fandoms. There's not a bad fandom. There's not a wrong fandom. There's just enjoying what you enjoy. Don't let other people's opinions of it sway yours, because you like what you like. And there's so much good stuff out there. I love the MCU. I love Star Wars. Have I had some ups and downs with some of my stuff? Yeah, but you know what? Just remember, just because it's not somebody else's cup of tea doesn't mean that they're wrong, or that they're being a jerk or whatever. It just means it's not their cup of tea, and that's fine. I mean, diversity is a good thing. Allow people to like what they like, and because they're not probably going to like what you like necessarily. But the thing is usually we can find some common ground somewhere and use that to bring us together, which is something the world needs right now, especially, we're still in lockdown. We're talking through Zoom meetings. Kevin's been, as we mentioned, been affected by COVID on a personal level, probably more than anybody I know, to be honest with you. But you know what? We are coming up on the holiday season. It's a time to try to come together. It's a time, even if we are still in lockdown from COVID, find ways, Zoom together, watch a Christmas special together, watch a Christmas movie, stay in touch with each other, really check on each other this time of year. This is always a hard time of year for a lot of people anyway. This year it's going to be even more so. So use fandom as a tool to bring everybody together.
I recently was reminded of some good advice. If there's someone you haven't talked to in a while, give them a call,
Yeah.
Let them know you're there. Say old, long friend, a relative you haven't touched base with in a while. Just make a call.
Yep, absolutely.
Reach out to them.
As for us, the Fandom Show will be back next month in December. We'll have some more fun things to talk about. And until then, as we say around here, first of all, the wise prophets, be excellent to each other. And as I said, enjoy your fandom. And with that, we are out of here.
Thank you, YouTube chat.
Thank you, YouTubers.
Bill and Ted now on video.
Bye, Highlander. Science kind of magic.